One of the many issues with a transforming society, one that's moving into new patterns, is oftentimes the extremes of the tipping scales. So in order to achieve balance, oftentimes we have to know very well the gravity and the weight of what is held on each side. And one of the things that is so grueling in society right now is the parallels. We used to live in these old, archaic ways where men had a certain stature and women, were in certain aspects, especially in more recent times, a second-class citizen. Yet there was, these really identified roles that each of us played, and typically, the male would work and the woman would be a homemaker, and if there was children involved, these duties between the woman and the male would be very defined, and there was order in that. And there was a lot of stifling and suffocation and holding in terms of emotions. And there was a lot of absence of authenticity because it was very molded. And that became the rebellion that led to a much more exaggerated version of loose ends and tethered threads. And to be quite honest, it's a very messy, chaotic place, the way that it stands, though it is shifting and there's some beauty that's unfolding within that. As much beauty as is unfolding, there's also a lot of pain and disruption and, breaking away of thoughts and breaking away of old defined roles, and in that it leaves people confused and it leaves people overwhelmed and it leaves people trying to be all things to all people. And it seems like it's a never-ending to-do list and task list, and there's very little self-esteem in terms of feeling validated for one's success points during the day because they're unreasonable, because there's just too many roles and there isn't that single pointed focus in a role, and therefore it's like, the world has turned into the jack of all trades and master of none. And it's hard, and it doesn't mean that it's better to be a master of one in absence of authenticity, but to be a jack of all trades is challenging on one's consciousness because you don't see the reward as steadfast, you don't see the reward as tangibly as you would if you had a single focus. And I see this as a single mom, there's just too many roles. And when you're doing this predominantly on your own, and many people are right now, more than half of society, what I see is this exhaustion because everything that needs to be done becomes a mountain to do in your mind. And when you're looking at self-development and being able to invite healthy, playful things into your life as well, on top of all of the duty and responsibility, it's very challenging to find time to implement all of the beautiful things that one needs to implement. The best that I found at this point in time is to surrender to the mediocrity that I'm able to offer in all the areas of my life, which includes myself, my children, my work, my relationships with individuals of all elements of life. And I choose to focus on introspecting taking the wisdom and taking the lessons from each of these findings within myself, and that helps. That's the validity that I get. That's the milestones that I have to witness, focusing on controlling emotions and that internal framework that helps me see my behavior in response to the situations in my life instead of the reactivity. But it is hard, and I see that for a lot of people, including myself, and many days may feel like you're just making it to the end of the day to start a new day. But in this, I think that the real, bigger scope is seeing society as a whole and how we're part of this big shift. And whenever we're shifting, it always goes to extremes. It's always something that's not as wonderful as we would want it to be. And so I just wanted to share this thought, and hopefully it resonates and touches someone else. But I think just surrendering to the stillness, going a little slower, because this mountain isn't going to dissipate. It's going to continuously be there. And as we try and embody more and more and more rules, that overwhelm could become a cloud that stagnates you. So instead of being stagnated by it, trying to greet each moment with appreciation for having it in your life, and surrendering to the fact that there is no way that you're supposed to be a master at all of these things. The only thing you can really become a master in this respect, when it's so overwhelming, is trying to be a master of yourself, introspecting and that self-awareness. And then you can move through the mountain. You can climb the mountain with a lot more grace and appreciation for the climb, instead of always focusing on the end point. Anyways, these are some of the thoughts that are arising inside me.